Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is Wraith, and thank you for joining me today for a new episode of In the Mist, the series where I talk about a game I'm in the midst of playing and the impression it gives. Today I'm showcasing Warframe, which is a game that was developed and published by Digital Extremes and was released on the 26th of March 2013. Warframe is a co-op third-person online action sci-fi game. You play as warriors known as Tenno who wield blades and guns while wearing armor known as Warframes. After a war that happened long ago, you're left drifting among the ruins, and you're awakened from slumber by the Lotus, who is a mysterious figure who guides the Tenno during their missions. She needs your help to stop the Grineer, which is a faction that has spread throughout the solar system, just raiding and conquering peaceful colonies. Warframe is also, more importantly, free to play. And there's always a stigma that's associated with free-to-play games. Usually it's because of two main things, and that's an absurd amount of mundane grinding to unlock content and paywalls or otherwise microtransactions that can often be pay to win. Warframe does have grinding and microtransactions, but they've gone about it a slightly different way. And this is why I wanted to showcase the game on this channel. They have what I'd consider a fair business model. Now, I hate grinding in games. I generally stick to one MMO because of this, and it's really only ever the community, guilds, or friends that I've made that actually keep me going or coming back to those games. Otherwise, I'd have quit them pretty early in their life. And I did actually quit Warframe 2 times to be exact. The first time was in 2014 when I first tried it. It was too grindy and time consuming, or at least what I felt was too grindy and time consuming, and I just wasn't interested in it. I didn't find it fun. And the second time was around mid-2017. I had, I think, clocked about 106 minutes at that point, and I was still bored of it. Once again, I quit and didn't come back. But there was one specific problem that was partially Digital Extremes as well as my fault. The game gives you the impression that stealthing is the way to go about it, and if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I love stealthing in games. If it's an option, I'm always going to opt for it. Now, my weapons and my frame were weak, so naturally I opted for the stealth route, trying to get one-hit stealth kills to avoid alerting other enemies. The problem is that stealth isn't all that great unless you have a certain Warframe that can turn invisible. Otherwise, the enemies don't really have any pathing or anything that's too predictable, and sometimes if you kill a guy next to another guy, that other guy might detect it. It's kind of a bit odd. This meant that missions were taking me 2 to 3 times longer than they should have. As a result, every time I was playing the game, I felt no sense of progress. But I gave it a third and final chance. I decided I would play casually this time while waiting for my weapons and frame to grow more powerful. So I was no longer going to stealth my way through missions. After this, I started to enjoy the game and appreciate it a lot more. I was doing mission after mission after mission after mission, and I was just gaining a lot of resources and experience along the way, or affinity. Is what it's called in the game. I actually started to feel a sense of progress because of this approach. I started learning the game better. I started modding my frame and weapons. Enemies that used to take multiple swings of my sword would now die in one. I went from hiding behind objects like a little bitch to a deadly cyborg ninja who was sliding, wall running, jumping, and gliding around enemies while shooting or slicing them like butter. If I wanted to and did it carefully, I could still stealth. I could get a few stealth kills in on unaware enemies. And the game even allowed me to latch onto walls for added stealth or for a better view of the fight. This actually makes me feel agile and powerful. It makes me feel like a badass because the combat is all action-based and not target-based. Pretty much every action is my own. And the game, it still has its flaws. Like, there are missions that take place in recycled levels, but they're procedurally generated, so enemies and objectives spawn in different-ish locations. Mission types do vary, but they kinda get old after a few hours. I have found 1 or 2 new mission types here and there as I've gotten further into the game. There is still a grind there, and apparently end game can be grindy as well. But usually with a lot of free-to-play games, they're grindy from start to finish, and their end games get even more grindy. Whereas with Warframe, it's somewhat bearable. And there's also quests and stories that also help to pace and disguise the grind a little bit. The downside is that some of these quests, well, pretty much all these quests have so far just recycled mission types from the game. Ironically, I said I'd play casually, and as I was doing that, that idea got thrown out of the window a few hours in. A few hours in, I was craving for more of that Cyborg Ninja action. I couldn't help it. This was easy to do because the starting missions generally last about 5 to 15 minutes depending on the mission. So taking that into account, as I mentioned earlier, it was taking me about 2 to 3 times longer to do the missions because I was trying to stealth them. So if you do the maths, some missions that would take maybe 15 minutes would take me 45 minutes. Some mission types like survivals or excavations allow you to stay longer to acquire better rewards, but otherwise they generally, like, you can stay for about 5 minutes, and after that you're pretty much done. The game does get harder though, since you can only hit a maximum level of 30 for your Warframe and weapons and that. You will actually encounter enemies above level 30 who do take quite a few shots or swings to kill, and this is usually the case in nightmare missions, or when you've spent too long in certain mission types like survivals, which eventually means that elite enemies start spawning, and they take a lot of damage or they just take a lot of bullets and swings to kill. All that said, I actually do feel like I'm nearing the grinding point, or the heavy grinding point, since the game does have a mastery system. The mastery rank is like a secondary experience bar, so each time you max out that bar, you can do a special training mission to go to the next rank. And each rank unlocks certain benefits as well. This can be things like certain weapons, frames, and mods that you can use, or even things like increasing the mod capacity and trading limit and more stuff like that. But in order to rank up your mastery, you actually need to hit maximum rank on your weapons, warframes, etc. And each time you do, it contributes to the mastery rank experience bar. At about 87 hours in, I'm at mastery rank 6, but to be fair, I haven't really been working on too many other weapons and frames. Like, I've mainly been sticking to Rhino, who I've pretty much maxed out. Now, this brings me to the business model as well. Warframe uses microtransaction currency known as Platinum. All players start with 50 Platinum, which is sort of like a freebie that Digital Extremes hand out to you. There's stuff on the market that does require Platinum, but you don't necessarily need to pay real money for it, partially because there are sometimes other ways of unlocking those items, and another reason is because you can actually sell certain loot for Platinum. You can still access these items without spending a cent, so it just means you have to work a little for them, and that's perfectly fair and fine, because they're not completely gated behind real-world money. It's not like you look at that skin and you think, oh wow, I can't afford that, I'll never be able to get it. It's not completely out of reach. You can actually earn Platinum without spending a cent to get that item. Now, there are some items and things that do require real money outright, like access to the Prime Vault or certain Tenno skins, and these are skins made by community members via the Warframe Tenno tool, and they're sold via the Steam Workshop, and revenue is actually split between the creators and Digital Extremes. So it's only fair that these cost real money, because if it costs Platinum, then people could just get it for free, and then the creators wouldn't get paid. So I find their business model pretty fair. They could have easily just said to people, oh, nah, these items, they cost Platinum. You want Platinum? Well, you have to give us real money. They took a risk and gave players the option to access most of the content for free. Personally, I'd prefer if items that also cost Platinum could be bought for real money or real world money directly, but that's because of my pet peeve with the way microtransactions are priced in general. To make things even better though, Digital Extremes do streams with Platinum giveaways. Digital Extremes. Get it? That sounded better in my head, so I will not apologize for that. On top of this, the daily login rewards have a chance to drop discount vouchers. I am so bad with jokes sometimes. And these vouchers can actually give you 50% off on your Platinum purchases, and some can actually even give you 75% off. This is literally a random reward just for logging in. And I've actually received probably 2 or 3 50% off ones in probably the month that I've been playing the game. I have spent a bit of money on the game too. I sort of gave myself a rule that I would only spend money after a certain amount of hours put into the game, usually 10 hours or more, and then I'd be allowed to spend something just to prevent me from going overboard. So when I got my first 50% off voucher, I decided to grab the 1000 platinum pack, but I also made sure I spent it wisely on things that were useful, and then I used whatever excess platinum I had left to buy myself some cosmetics. So some of the things I ended up buying were loadout slots. I bought some former thingies, which basically allow you to prestige your warframes and weapons, so it basically resets your frames and weapons to back to rank 0 so that you can re-level them up. And you can change one of the polarities. Actually, I won't go into too much detail because it can get a bit confusing. I might explain that in another video at some point. But yeah, I spent it on a few useful things that would help me out as I was leveling certain frames. But, you know, I've generally found that Warframe actually offers an overwhelming amount of content that you can unlock for free. I feel as though as if I have too much to unlock now, which isn't a bad thing. I like that. I just feel like I don't know what to pick. I have too much to choose from, and that's a good thing. You know, there's quite a few weapons and frames that you can unlock even just for credits alone, which is the in-game currency. Then, if you unlock the clan dojo, you can research blueprints to unlock other items that would otherwise cost platinum if you tried to buy them via the inventory menu. Just keep in mind, if you're deciding to play, the clan dojo does require some items that could be considered grindy to get, or otherwise you might end up paying platinum to unlock some of those items to research the thingies that allow you to research the blueprints. This is getting too complicated. I'm not going to overwhelm you with that information. There's also occasional events, and often a lot of alerts that can reward you blueprints that would otherwise take a bit of grinding to find. They also reward you with materials or resources that, you know, you might find that you're struggling to earn in a certain level, or they might reward you with resources that you might not be at the correct level to get. So say like a resource that you might only find in a level 30 to 40 area, but you might only have a frame that's level 10. So if you do the alert that takes place in like a level 10 to 20 zone or something, you've got access to that. So I actually really like that they did that. They rotate these rewards and gives you access to it. Makes things more accessible. And this was actually how I unlocked some decent weapons for my Excalibur frame. But since I hate grinding, and I've been enjoying the game, I might throw a few more bucks in to unlock some of the platinum-based or prime frames. Prime frames are basically just slightly better versions of your normal frames. And I really want to get my hands on Wukong, but I can't be fucked dealing with the market or trading system. Look it up. Look up Wukong in YouTube videos. You'll see what I mean. It's a really awesome frame. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Digital Extremes for providing permission to allow people to create videos so that this video could exist. I'd also like to thank each and every one of you for watching. If you're interested in Warframe, links will be in the description. Otherwise, you can just Google it. It's available on PC, PS4, and Xbox One. There's really no reason to be on the fence about trying it since it's free. If you're just starting out or coming back to it, I'd recommend playing it casually. You know, do a mission or two here and there and then come back the next day. That was how I got into it. Like the third time I tried it, I did that, and I was able to, it allowed me to ease into it a lot better. It's pretty well designed. Naturally, the stigma surrounding free-to-play does infect Warframe, but Digital Extremes have done fairly well and are doing fairly well to fight that. There's constant updates to the game that I've noticed. Most MMOs usually pick a structure and stick with it, or once they've fully developed the game, they just keep it the same and maybe add some expansions to it, while Warframe is branching out into things like open world content and adding new mechanics. It's like for them, they haven't stopped developing the game, and in an odd kind of way, that's good. And that's all I have time for at the moment. I might have a second video to cover a bit more of the gameplay side of Warframe and, you know, talk about a few other things that I wanted to discuss in the video if I have time. So stay tuned for that. And as usual, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you in the next video.
We will all share in this bounty. Hold out as long as you can.